Well, good afternoon, gang. Welcome back to Woodcraft. My name is Joe. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm happy to see you. We have something kind of unique, one of the most unique or different knives that I have taken a look at on this channel. Just to give this a little bit of context, back when the Gauntlet first started, I don't think it was my first knife with a Gauntlet, but it was number 2, number 3, something like that. It is still to this day one of my absolute favorite knives to come through the Gauntlet, one of the most favorite knives that I have used, but unfortunately didn't get to keep or own. It was from William Collins, or WC Knives. He called it his Forest Fatty. I love that blade. Well, we have another blade from William Collins today that is going through the Gauntlet. He calls it his Master Woodsman. Now, as you can see, this blade is well used, or as I like to say, well loved. This has gone through at least one channel, maybe 2. I'd have to kind of go back and check the logs there through YouTube. But as you can see, it is a little bit different than the standard knife. What we have going on here, it is dual grind. You have scandi back up here, and it transitions into a saber grind. And for those that might be wondering right off the bat, well, if it's got 2 grinds, that's going to be a pill or a bear to maintain, hone up, sharpen up. I have to say it's not. What William has done is he has kept the same grind angle on the scandi up all the way through the saber grind. I believe it's 11 degrees on one side. So maintaining the angle while you're sharpening a blade is very simple, very easy to do. And as usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and go over the specs so you guys are more informed about the knife or have more of an idea of the exact size and stuff like that. I have a little bit to talk about also at that angle. We'll get on to the demonstration and my thoughts. All right, specs rundown. We're gonna do this the old-fashioned way because I cannot find the specs in my show notes. So we're gonna use a measuring tape. Overall length, you're looking at just a hair over 11 inches. Handle length is just a hair over 5 inches. Blade length is right at 6 inches. The scandi, if you're interested, I would give that about 1.75 inches before it really seriously starts transitioning, maybe 2 inches before the transition, which leaves about 4 inches, give or take a little bit on the saber, you know, including some of that transition as well. Max grind height is 1.5 inches, it looks like. On the belly of the handle, you're looking at just shy of 1.5 inches, something like that. Width of the handle is about 3/4 inch at the thickest part. This is a 3-position handle that William Collins has come up with. Obviously, you have your standard, you know, hold right there where you have your pinky and your index finger going right there in those contours. And he has designed this 4-part here that if you're doing super fine work with a scandi, so you can choke up and your middle finger goes around this top contour and you choke up on it right there, and you can get some serious torque or some serious power behind that scandi edge. But also at the same point in time, basically the same thing in reverse. Back here, he's put this bulb on the very end, mix that with a lanyard, choke back on it, you can get some serious chopping power behind this thing. So that being said, let's talk about the concept here a little bit. William just didn't have an idea, run with it, and put it into market. William has been working on this for at least 6 months. He has put out several testers to many people in the YouTube community. If you guys have been watching my videos, you have seen this knife on at least 4 occasions that I'm aware of. I never did get around to really doing a dedicated video on it because I knew it wasn't going to be the final model. But as you can see, there are, you know, some similarities there. What I want to illustrate here is William didn't come up with this overnight and just throw it out there on the market. William had an idea, he put it into steel, used it, he liked the idea or the concept, but he took it a step further. Instead of just deciding he liked it, he liked what it did. He put out several different models of testers out on the market, mainly in the YouTube community, to get guys that use knives all the time, get their opinion on it, and then he adjusted it from there. Case in point, when I first got this, I used it for a weekend, maybe a full week, and then I was talking to William, sharing some thoughts on it, and I told him, I said, you know, I'm wondering if this knife wouldn't be better, instead of having a saber up here, if it had a flat grind up here. So what showed up in the mail about 3 days later, as you can see, he made one with a flat grind. So that's just to point out, he didn't just throw this out on the market. It is well thought out. It has had a lot of feedback from guys who use knives, guys that know what they're doing, and I'm not necessarily putting myself in that grouping. But I mean, there are tons of YouTubers these have crossed hands with, and he took their feedback, came and mixed it with his idea and came up with something that is very usable, that I don't know of anybody who has used the final production model that doesn't like it. Well, with the specifications out of the way and a little bit of backstory, or at least what William was thinking when he designed this knife, let's give this video some context about the in-use portions that I roll in here. What I'm doing is kind of mixing a primitive trap with a more modern trap. Short story is, last winter there was a bunch of clear cutting done, which pushed a bunch of rodents and varmints, raccoons and possums and stuff, back up into our neck of the woods. We were completely overrun with them, so I had to try to control the population a little bit, and I ran out of 5-gallon buckets for bucket traps for raccoons, and so I just kind of improvised, and this is what I came up with. It's kind of like a debris trap mixed with the concept of a bucket trap. But anyway, on to this knife. What are my thoughts? Well, let's start right up here. Those that are familiar with William Collins and the way he grinds his Scandi knives, it's absolutely excellent. It's a very user-friendly knife, very easy to use, but it's not so steep that it has an incredible amount of bite, but it's not so narrow that it's hard to control either. And it's also not so narrow that it doesn't have the strength there to you know, do some harder tasks. This portion of the knife, it feathers like a champ, it notches like a champ, it is very usable. Moving on up into the transition. This part right here, just like with a tracker knife, and I'm not comparing this knife to a tracker knife because it's not like a tracker at all in my opinion. I mean, it does share a few characteristics with the tracker, but I mean, overall, it is not a takeoff or a tracker imitation. That's what I'm trying to say. But in that transition right there, where it goes from the Scandi and kind of transitions into the saber, that is a great sweet spot. If you need some more bite when you're chopping, because that saber grind right there is more narrow, it will bite down into the wood more. However, if you are feathering, using that right there as a sweet spot for a feather, you can get some amazing curls out of that. Moving on to the forward part of the blade. As is pretty obvious, this is going to be a tip heavy blade. Don't get me wrong, the balance is definitely there. It feels good in the hand overall, but it is a tip heavy blade, and so you can get a lot of power when you choke back on this multi-position handle. When you choke back like William prescribes, you can get a lot of power, a lot of snap power up in the belly of this blade, and it allows you to, you know, chop some thicker stuff, maybe some stuff you wouldn't think that you would be able to chop with a knife of this size. It works incredibly well, but at the same time, it may be tip heavy or front blade heavy on this knife. The tip is narrow enough, it does thin out enough that it is a very usable tip for finer tasks. You guys know me, I love making bow drill sets, I love doing the bow drill. It's just one of my hobbies, or some folks might accuse me of having an addiction of some sort, but it does allow you to get into notches and doing finer tasks very well. As with all of William's knives that I'm aware of anyway, it does come with an incredibly sharp 90-degree spine that goes all the way from the tip to all the way back to the handle here. So if you want to process bark, create some dust off some wood, or Maya dust off a fat wood, or strike a ferro rod, it does work incredibly well for that. So overall, it is a very user-friendly blade. I have watched William's videos on it and a couple other folks' videos on it. I've actually talked to William at length over the phone on his thought process behind this knife, what he wants it to do, what he wanted it to do while he was creating the design, so to speak.
So the back end, normally it's covered all the way up, but you need to be able to see in here.
So I agree, this knife does everything that William says it does, or claims that it does. I really, overall, like the concept behind this knife. I do have a few critiques here, but I'm not going to count them as negatives, because not only do they kind of fall into personal preference to a certain degree, William is also a custom knife maker. So if you choose to order one of these, you can change that about it. I am going to share a little bit more as far as a negative aspect of it, just a little bit, because I feel like it's relevant to a lot of people out there. This handle design works great for a lot of folks. There are a lot of these knives out there, at least in the concept style of the blade, kind of like the ones I showed you earlier, and there's a lot of guys that really like this handle. But also at the same point in time, there are a few guys out there that I know that don't, and I'm one of those guys. I'm not going to harp on this. This isn't a huge negative, folks. This is something that if you choose to order one, it can easily be changed. The knife handle, and I get William's purpose behind it, it is just too thin versus too tall. And with the actual metal part, or the spine of the knife being part of the handle itself, it digs into my hand, it digs into the bottom side of my knuckles, and honestly, I find it painful. But if I was going to order this knife, what I would do is I would probably have William thin out this hump a little bit, this contouring, thicken out the scales a little bit, keep the overall profile of the handle itself, but just make this shorter and make it fatter, make these recesses less pronounced. And I'd also have him not sharpen this right here, as when I'm choking up on the blade, my long finger wants to go right there, and it pokes into my finger, and is just painful. Like I said, this is informational purposes, not a ding on the knife, not a critique. It can't be, because if you want to order one, you can have the handle done however you want. Anyway, enough on that. Overall thoughts on the knife. I know I've been rambling here for quite a while. Overall thoughts on the knife. If there is such a thing, and I'm not a true believer in a one tool option, and I know someone out there is going to go, well, Joe, if you only have one tool with you, there's your one tool option. You know what I mean. If there is such a thing as the concept of a one tool option, this is the closest thing that I have ever seen tick all the boxes that I think a one tool option needs to tick. You can chop with it efficiently. I mean, it's not an axe, but you can chop with it efficiently. You can do the finer tasks efficiently. You can do the medium tasks efficiently. I mean, it covers many, many bases. Does it cover them all? Probably not, but no knife does. So that being said, you guys make up your own mind. I definitely approve of this concept. I personally would get a different handle, but you know, that's totally up to you. Personal preference all the way right there. Anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, would you go ahead and give me a thumbs up? I would appreciate it very much. Also, if you have not done so yet and enjoy videos such as this, there's a red subscribe button right down here. I invite you to make use of that. And as always, guys, hit that comment section up. Let's talk about this knife. Anything else you want to talk about? Anyway, thank you again very much for being here today. I do appreciate your time very much, and I will see you next time. I hope you guys have a great day.